All right, meantime, WTI crude hitting its highest level since January after Iran's retaliatory attacks on Israel. How much higher can prices go? Let's bring in OPIS's chief oil analyst, Denton Cinquegrana. Denton, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to see you.
You apparently believe that much of today's move, or all of today's move perhaps, was short covering.
Yeah, no, this market had a lot of open interest. Rule of thumb that I use is open interest goes down, prices go up, sign of short covering. Money managers did have quite a bit of short positions out there as well. So, and this market was trending higher over the course of this week anyway. So this kind of just supercharged it.
Let's pretend that we freeze here in terms of the retaliation, the missiles being traded, et cetera. This seems like it's almost a pretty good case scenario for oil, at least, because no infrastructure was damaged, no oil infrastructure. The Strait of Hormuz is still open. What would oil do at this point?
Well, you're absolutely right. We freeze everything here, and you're looking at a situation where supply is not impacted. OPEC is still bringing more barrels to the market, even though rigs are down in the United States. Production is still in the 13 million barrel a day plus area. We see no impact to supplies as it currently stands. So if Iran doesn't do anything to, say, block the straits like you mentioned, which again, they'd end up shooting themselves in the foot because they use the strait as well, you're looking at a situation where prices may start to cool off. I mean, WTI reached as high as 77.62, down $4 from there. But I think a lot of this was a knee-jerk reaction and the short covering as mentioned before.
Denton, Tim, thanks for joining us. One of the other fascinating headlines, I think, from this week in the space is that the IEA, and this isn't like a real earth-shattering headline, but that U.S. shale production has peaked and that U.S. will start to see some contraction in their production over the next couple of years. Does that do anything? I realize on some level it's always been about Saudi and OPEC swing production, but in terms of us oversupply of the oil market that the U.S. has had something to do with and put OPEC on their back foot, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Tim. And yeah, I think shale has peaked maybe for the time being. I think the rig count's coming down, obviously, is going to put some downward pressure on oil production here in the United States. But even with a pullback in production, the United States is still going to be one of the largest producers on the planet.
So let's pretend that the conflict goes away. Do you think that the trend for oil, do you think we've seen the lows?
For the year, probably.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with economic growth as well. Like I said, this market had been trending higher this week even before this. U.S.-China negotiations are ongoing, but they seem to be moving in a positive direction. Inflation was coming down. I think next month we'll probably see a higher inflation number. And GDP looks like it's going to be okay here in the second quarter. And globally, you're starting to see some economists, kind of boost their GDP outlook. So, but with today and everything that's happened, that 77.62 for WTI, 78.50 for Brent. Melissa, if everything freezes and nothing else happens, like you said, I think that may be the high for the remainder of 2025.
Okay. And then, since it's a long weekend, we don't know what's going to happen. Walk us through what you think happens to the oil price if they do close the strait.
Yeah, if they close the strait, you're going to see a pretty significant impact. Obviously, there's alternatives to go through the Suez Canal, but the ships that could pass the Suez are smaller. So obviously, you're not shipping as much. Shipping costs will go up. It takes more time to get to various locations through the Suez. So it would be a lift for prices, but not, incredibly. I do think, though, if you block the strait for a period of time, yeah, triple digits become part of the equation again.